Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats with writer and comic book legend D.G. Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there. Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Lunatics. I am Phil, Lilith is here, and we have another special guest, Nick the Wolf, to talk about his book, Villains Never Die, who we met at HersheyCon just a few weeks ago. So,
spoilers for the patrons.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah, we're going to talk all about our trip to HersheyCon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't done that one. That was a fun time. That was a cool con.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was our first time there. I guess it's.
Mine too.
Oh, yeah, they said it's only, that was like, what, the third or fourth year there? I think they've had that.
So they said that was like third, fourth year there, and then, I don't know, they're moving one of their other ones. It was weird because, like, I've never done a con that's in a hotel the way that one was set up. I'm used to, like, the big halls, you know, where it's basically you're in, like, an airplane hangar, and it's just, like, everyone's next to each other. It was much more, I don't know, it was much more intimate. Like, you know, it was quiet, you could talk to people. That was fun.
Yeah. How did you get the invite? Did you, like, submit, or?
I think that I found that one randomly. Like, totally legit. So I've been doing the con circuit for a few years, but, like, mostly local to the DC area. And I met someone at Awesome Con, and he makes his living out doing cons. He's an artist, and he gave me like a spreadsheet of all the cons that he goes to, and it was like 4 different pages of sheets. Like, it was ridiculous. But I combed through it and I looked for ones that were more sort of comic book based, and HersheyCon was on there, and so I just sort of applied, thinking, you know, why the heck not? And I got in.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, like that's what Lilith was saying. Yeah, you don't see a lot in the hotels anymore because a lot of times they don't have like the regular Holiday Inns anymore. Sometimes you just have like the smaller ones and stuff, and you know, with not a lot of room for that. I remember, as a kid going to comic conventions and
totally.
Yeah,
there was only one. So like, I'm in the Maryland area, and when I was growing up, like there was one comic book convention a year, and it was in like the rattiest, scariest hotel you've ever been in your life, and like. It was the kind of place where you go in and you look around and you're just like, wow, I'm not going to make it out of here. So I better get all the comic books that I want so I can read them tonight because I'm not making it home. And it was just, you know, it was just literally just boxes and boxes of comic books. And that was it. There was no one presented. No one did anything. And then like, I think I was maybe 12 or 13 and Stan Lee came one year.
Oh, wow.
And that was huge. Everyone was freaking out that Stan Lee was going to be there, and it was wild.
Yeah, I remember those. You just went, and it was usually just dealers selling comics. Every once in a while, you might get a guest. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and now it's totally different.
I can't relate.
Yeah, she grew up in San Diego. She got the best.
For a long time was my preferred con over San Diego Comic Con for a long time, and I think it's actually going to probably end up going back that way. And I just actually got an email from one of my friends who works LA Con, and they said, we need to fix this because LA Con, if you've ever been past like 5 years, it's kind of not been the best, and they want to like build it back up, especially with San Diego losing all their like people that have their own individual cons like D3 and all those other ones that they've been doing the big announcements there. So LA's like,
yeah,
we could pick up lot. So I'm excited to see what the convention circuit looks like in the next like 5 to 10 years, because you got like GalaxyCon, you got AwesomeCon, you got DragonCon wanting to branch out and other
diversify.
Exactly.
Come on, yeah, like stop. Yeah, yeah, I love the idea that like it's not just going to be this sort of one big event that like, you know, all the studios, all the comic book publishers, everyone can sort of like spread it out and release those announcements at different times of the year. And so like we're not on this schedule where it's like, okay, we have to get this stuff done before Comic-Con. Like, screw it. We'll just wait for the next one. We're good. Yeah. Let's make it good as opposed to like presentable.
And like I said, the smaller cons are like really like gaining traction too. And I really kind of fell in love with HersheyCon. I was like, wow, this is really nice, neat, organized, very intimate. I got to see so many like independent artists, and it's like that's where it's at, because I know that's where your guys' bread and butter is like the smaller cons, because they're kind of like highfalutin nowadays. They forget where they come from.
You know, it's weird. It's like, okay, so I did GalaxyCon in Richmond that at the beginning of the year. And I got to admit, like, I sold really well there. I totally did. But I got very little traction with the people that I sold to, if that makes any sense, right? So, like, I didn't see any increase in my reviews. I didn't see any increase in my traffic on my, you know, Instagram page, which I don't really monitor that much anyway. But, like, I didn't get a lot of response, whereas HersheyCon, like, y'all reached out to me, and like I've had a lot of other people who are like, I'm seeing more reviews popping up now and things like that. And I feel like people that go to those smaller cons are really kind of genuinely interested, and the ones at the bigger cons, there's just so much that it's hard for people to sort of keep track of all the things that they get. But I'm still happy to sell you all of my books at once. That is also totally fine with me.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. With we kind of brought this up with DG Chichester, who we do a podcast with. We were there to see at HersheyCon. It's like, you know, it's a place to network, not only with like, you know, other artists and writers, but also your fans.
Yeah, yeah,
really take advantage of that and build community, because the comic book community, because it's so heavily online these days, you don't really get a chance to fellowship with your fellow nerds anymore. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to like make those connections, and like it's also especially hard to sort of, you know, meet your fans that are out there. And I did AwesomeCon for a few years, and I remember it was like, I don't know, maybe two AwesomeCons ago. I went in and I set up, and it was the first day, it was Friday, and like my sales were terrible and like nothing was going well, and I had this moment of just like, I'm a failure. I hate this place. Why am I here? It's too loud. Not enough people. I don't like it, you know? And then all of a sudden, this person came up to my table, and they were like, they looked at my books and they were like, oh, do you have a sequel yet? And I was like, have you read the first one? And they were like, yeah. You don't remember me? I got this from you last year. And I just had this moment of like, oh, I just met a fan in the wild. Oh my God. And it was this amazing experience, and like we talked and chatted, and like he ended up buying another one of my books, and then, you know, I felt okay, and I was like, okay, I come back the next day, and people came up to my table that were like, hey, I remember you. Hey, I bought your book last year. Hey, what have you got? And it was just this awesome experience. And like the same thing happened at GalaxyCon, because AwesomeCon and GalaxyCon were like a week apart, and they're going to do that again next year. And I'm at GalaxyCon, and people are walking by, and they're like waving at me, and I'm realizing I just saw you a week ago at AwesomeCon, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally picked up that book, you know, and I'm going to get this next one too. I'm just going to, you know, just give me all your books. Just give me all your books. It definitely makes a huge difference. Like you can meet those people as cons, but like HersheyCon, I'm hoping I go back next year, and you know, people are like, I remember you from last year.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess let's talk about your journey as a writer.
Sure.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. When did you first realize, oh, I'm a writer. This is my path. I am a writer.
Okay. So like I'm 13 years old, and I'm really into Dragonlance novels. Like the Dragonlance Chronicles are like my Bible, right? Like I love these books. And I just absolutely wrote like a 400-page rip-off of Dragonlance. Like it was straight.
It's fan fiction. It's a love letter to your favorite
that is,
IP.
That is now what it is called. It is previously when I was writing, I was 13 years old, and I was like, I know I'm just stealing this. Like this is plagiarism. I know what I'm doing here? But I loved it. Right? And I wrote it, and it was atrociously bad, and it was embarrassingly tropic. It was like every single trope out of every single thing, but I loved it, and I wrote it, and I knew that I wanted to tell stories one way or another, and so I wrote that. And then I went on and I wrote some short stories and some things like that, but I never really got like deep into it because I went from there, and my other real love was theater. I was a performer, and a writer and a director, and I was a dancer for a little while. And like, so I go to college and I just throw myself into theater. I did that professionally after I left college for, I don't know, almost 10 years. And then at one point I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I had stuff going on in my life. I'd had some kids, and I realized I was like, I can't do theater at the level that I want to do and be the dad I want to be. And so I decided to leave theater, and I had this like gaping hole of creativity that needed to be filled. And like, I was driving people crazy because I had like all this energy. I needed to do something. And so I just sort of randomly was like, you know what? I have this story that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I'm just gonna start writing it. And I did. And I sat down and I started writing, and I ended up cranking out the first version of the first book that I got published, which was Frightfully Ever After. And I finished that, and you know, I was pretty happy with it, but it wasn't fantastic. It had a different title at the time. And I then went on to write the first version of what ended up becoming Villains Never Die. And that was like this sort of big moment for me where I finished the story and I was like, this is an amazing story. Oh my God, I love this story so much. And I sent it out to be queried by agents, and I just got crushed. Just like I don't think they would even open my emails. They saw superhero in the query title, and it was like,
what year was this when you were starting to query the agents? Because nowadays, this would have like, I think you're a little too ahead of your time.
I know. Like Marvel wasn't even a thing. I mean, you know, like the studios, the movies, like it wasn't even happening. I think this would have been probably like 2010.
Oh, yeah.
About. Yeah, it was like 2010, maybe even, about 2010. And
you're about 2 years too soon.
Yeah, I know, right? It sucks. And so I started doing that. And then from there, eventually a small publisher picked up Frightfully Ever After, and I got that one published, and then just sort of kept on going from there. I got the rights back to Frightfully after a few years. I'd also cranked out what was my second book, which is Pulling Strings. And then I still had what became Villains Never Die, as sort of like it was backlogged. I was waiting to work on it. And then I started basically self-publishing. And at that point, I just sort of took off, and I've just been doing it ever since.
Self-publishing is a hard job, but it is totally worth it when it works.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it works for me in that, like, the books are exactly what I want them to be, but it does not work for me in that I make $0. I make
It's
nothing
a lot
off
of heavy
of it.
lifting.
It is. Oh, my gosh. I have done my taxes many years, and, like, I type it all into TurboTax, and TurboTax is like, I think you should reconsider. You have officially lost money on your career, so how about maybe we look at something? Have you ever considered working in a kitchen? Can you mop a floor?
Have you ever considered the junior program at Macy's? The junior executive program at Macy's.
Yeah, like when TurboTax starts sending you the like Target is hiring in your area notices, you're like, oh man, I'm not doing that. Oh man.
But you're creative at heart. You just keep plugging away. I've read a lot of really great reviews about this book when I was done, because I went to go do Goodreads, and I was like, oh, good. I'm happy. Like sometimes I like pick up books from cons, and I'm like usually like the first review, which I'm happy to be, but I'm always really excited when there's been other people there before.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been very happy with the feedback on it. And I'll tell you though, a lot of those reviews are me out there. Like, I'm like, you know, I'm reaching out to, you know, book talkers or whatever they're called now. And I'm like, you know, I'll send you a copy of my book. You can have a free ebook if you review it and da-da-da. And I've had to push really hard to get the reviews that I have.
I mean,
I think like it's so many, especially like self-published and independent book writers. It's just so many. And then, you know, we have this whole atrocity of AI writing books and things like that. That it's just really hard to make sure that a person, like, I have a lot of friends that, like, review, like, they have their blogs and they do TikTok and they say, you know, I think this is AI. I'm not going to review that. It's really hard for them as well. So I think it does actually help when an actual person reaches out to them and it's not just like an email.
I try. Like, I try to make my messages, especially to ones I've never worked with. I have like a pretty good network of bookstagrammers that, you know, like I've had communication with in one form or another, and some of them have reviewed my books and some of them haven't. But like, I always try and reach out and be like, hey, we talked last year, like, you know, I am a human being, you know, like.
They're like, now write a poem about cashews.
And I would write back and I'd be like, I can't do that. You know, they'd be like, now I know you're not an AI, because AI would have just done it, cranked it out in like a minute and a half.
Oh, dead internet theory hurts my heart.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh no, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, you did mention cons and stuff, and we love comic books here. Like, what are you a fan of, like, comic wise?
Okay, so this is the question I was fearing, because y'all are gonna hate me. I actually
You'd be surprised. I'm an Archie fan, so.
Okay, there you go. I'm even worse. I don't even really read comics anymore, to be honest.
I mean, I get it. I mean, you're busy. No.
We're lucky enough to be old fuddy-duddies that can still actually pretend to have a job about comic books.
I mean, as a kid, what did you love? What were your
You know, like, I was okay. So like, I'm such a weird person this way. Like, I didn't love anyone. There were certain runs of things that I really liked, like here and there, but I was never gonna like marry myself to one character or to one world or to one thing. And that actually kind of comes through in my writing, in that, like, no two of my books are alike. Like, I use the phrase, I refuse to play in the same sandbox twice. Like, my writing style changes, my characters change, the world changes. I have a book that's about fairy tale godmothers living in a modern world. I have a book about a psychic secret agent. I have Villains Never Die, which is about superheroes. And then I have like a collection of short stories that are all just completely different, right? And I'm a fan of ideas. I'm a fan of concepts. I'm a fan of like moments in time. And so like when I was a kid, the comic books that drew me were the ones, typically they were like not necessarily limited runs, but like a relatively short storyline that was very clear from beginning to end. And then of course, you know, they try and take it and do something else with it. But like, this was a moment in this character's life. And that's what I loved. So like the one that I read over and over again as a kid was the Green Lantern, where it's Hal Jordan, right after, where he goes out and he like tears apart the corpse, right? And he like gets all the rings, and it's all just this, like, you know, you look at it and it's just this story of him just dealing with tragedy, and like this, you know, like he just cannot fathom a world where justice isn't what he's been told it is. And so like that one really spoke to me. I loved that run. You know, there were like some Spider-Man runs that I really loved. There was the occasional Superman run that I really enjoyed. But like, I also read a lot of The Savage Dragon, you know, and The Last Man. And like, I just bopped around here and there. You know, I'd pick something up. I'd read one comic out of a run and I'd be like, I don't want to read the rest. This is a story in itself. That's what I want.
Can't do that anymore. Everything's
right?
these days.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Everything is like, okay, well, if you haven't read all 300 of them, you're really not going to get it. It's like, okay, just give me a single story.
So you seem like you're filled with creativity, because you're like, I cannot stay in this sandbox for a while. I have to do this genre, this genre, this genre. So I'm kind of disappointed. I'm like, can you announce a sequel to this? I want a sequel to this.
I know. Is that your number one question, or is it like to another book?
No, if it's a question about a sequel, it's always that book. No one asks for a sequel to anything else. It's always that book.
What do you think? Do you think your other books have like more of a self-contained, satisfactory end, But where this world with Villains Never Die, it's like, this has so much potential. I mean, there's this little corner that you could just scratch out and discuss.
And there's like a built-in, like, it could be a legacy thing too. So it's like, yeah, that's it. It kind of lends itself to.
And since it's like a superhero story, and you do have the legacy conceits in there, I think that's what people like kind of subconsciously pick up on. It's like, well, I mean, there's never been a one and done superhero franchise ever.
So
this might be the first.
Wow. Okay. So, like, here's my thing. Now that I'm an adult and I'm not a 13-year-old anymore, I love messing with tropes. I like tearing them apart and doing something different with them. Okay. So, like, I know you haven't read it, but Pulling Strings, my Psychic Secret Agent book, is a Ronin story. It's, the big strong man walks into a town, sees bad things happening, beat everybody up, saves the day, right? But it's a woman in her early 60s, and she has a bum knee, and she can shoot invisible bullets from her fingers. And, yeah, right? She's got psychic powers, and as the story goes on, it just becomes more and more of a horror story. Like, I love tearing down tropes and sort of rebuilding them, but also finding what's at the essence of them that people love, right? And so when I was writing Villains Never Die, I already knew in the back of my head that, like, one of the things I was going to have to do with this was do the classic superhero, leave it a little bit open at the end. And then I didn't know if I was going to write a sequel. Like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not going to. Maybe you're just going to be stuck living in that moment for the rest of your life, wondering what's next.
And sometimes that's perfectly fine. Sometimes I'm okay with that, and there's like fanfic for it to fill the hole, but
if I'm just putting this out there for the world, if anyone wants to write fan fiction of Villains Never Die, please do. I would love to read that. I would love to read that.
No, that's you'd be surprised about fandom and community with fanfic. Like, Anne Rice totally missed the point of that, unfortunately. I just if she would have embraced it, I really feel like that whole vampire interview with the vampire world could have just been so much more fulfilling for her as well, too, like, to actually interact with the fans. And like that's just the one thing. If I could time travel and just tell her, like, please don't be like this about these books, just let them write the fanfic in peace.
You will get so many more ideas, and then you can reach out to those writers and be like, all right, I'm gonna let you publish this, but I get a little bit of the money. And then you're like, come on. Yeah, no, like, I would love it. I'd love to see, because I think the cool thing about fan fiction, I don't honestly, like, yes, my first thing that I wrote when I was 13 was basically fan fiction. But, like, the thing that I love about fan fiction is that really you get to see this world that you have created through other people's eyes and how they perceive it. And all of a sudden, yeah,
like you're like, that's interesting.
I never thought of that. I didn't see that character that way, but wow, they really read something into them that I didn't even mean to put in there, but I guess I did put in there because they picked that up, and they pulled that thread.
The metatextual subtext and all that.
Yeah.
You're just writing, you're like, oh, this, because you write what you know, and like, it just kind of seeps in there unintentionally, and then you just see somebody reinterpret it, and you're just like,
yeah,
I'm a
love that.
fan, so if you're on AO3 or fanfic.net, like, so I know the writers have been on there go, oh my God, this is not what we intended.
But I gotta say, I wonder how many times the writers went on there and read that fan fiction. They were like, "Oh my God, why didn't I think of that?"
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
I think after it got canceled, not canceled. After it ended, I think it was maybe Andrew, one of the showrunners from a time, were like, I peeked over there, and I'm like, dang.
Yeah, I guess that's it. That's the other thing I was going to say.
They pitched, and they were like, then the executives were like, no, and then it was like literally like the number like 4 tag or something on AO3, and they were like,
right, yeah. So, like, I'm just going to throw out there, if there's fan fiction of Villains Never Die, be prepared. If it's a good one, I will totally steal that. I will totally steal that idea. I'll give you a little credit at the end.
All right,
I'll throw your name in there.
All right, if you don't do a sequel to this book, would you ever adapt it for other mediums, like either comics, or if someone came to you for like a show or something, would you do that?
Hollywood, I am for sale. I am for sale. You bring me a check that is big enough, you can have anything you want. So yeah, like, no, totally. I would. So here's the thing: when I write, I try to write in a cinematic way, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I'm writing a book, there's a million ways to write a book, and I really believe in like, I want to put a picture in your head. I want to put a movie into your mind. I want there to be visuals, and I want you to like be there and feel it as though you were watching this on the screen. And so like Villains Never Die for me really was, it was like reading a comic. It was like watching a movie. It was, you know, like I pictured Dendrite's first chapter really as narration, which I know now you really shouldn't have narration at the beginning of a movie because now that's a trope too. But I felt like it was really, it's designed to be taken that way. But in all honesty, I don't think it could be a movie. If someone wants to like, if Netflix, if you're out there, 6-part miniseries, 6-part miniseries, Villains Never Die, perfect, you know, like 1 hour each, maybe hour and 15, you know, like I think it would work perfectly for that. And I would be down for it 100%, as long as there's a check involved.
Is there a director that you have in mind or anything like that?
No, I don't, you know, like I would want someone who is as passionate about it as I am. They're not just doing it because it's the next thing. B, like is willing to really stick with what is there and not try and reimagine it. And this is going to be the kicker though. C, I have to be involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm such a picky bitch. Like I am so difficult to please. And like I can't imagine signing Villains Never Die over to someone and they come back to me and they're like, well, we completely rewrote it and changed all the characters. And I'd be like, no, here's that money back. Give me my story.
So you'd have to be on set every day and giving notes every day. Be like, no, we need more spiders on him. More spiders.
I'm good at working with other creatives. I've done a lot of it. I'm really good at like, I love spitballing. One of my favorite things in the world is sitting around and like shooting ideas at each other and then making decisions. So I'd be good to work with. But yeah, I'd want to be involved, and I'd have to be like, Captain Turbo, more stripes on the chest. You know, like can you be older and grumpier? I need a little more out of that, you know? Like, yeah, I'd definitely be throwing stuff at him.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, I mean, you could steer into the skid, be like, "Hey, Amazon, Captain Turbo, that could be your next Homelander," you know?
You know, when the boys came out, I was like, oh, "Son of a bitch!" Kidding me? Now, boys is totally its own thing, and like, I'm not saying they obviously did not steal my idea, but I was like, "Come on."
Well, they're
right
ending next season. Well, because Eric Cook only likes to do 5 seasons. Like, that's how he visualizes it. So, there's still room.
There we go. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like after the superhero fatigue, like, ripping superheroes apart is the next, like, wave of that, just naturally. So.
Yeah. I think Villains would fit into that beautifully. I hope it's a different kind of story. I hope it's not exactly what everyone else has done before. So, yeah, come at me, Hollywood. I'm here.
Well, I mean,
I think we should call it Thursday Night Spaghetti. Listen, as somebody who loves routine, yes, there must be a spaghetti night in the week.
Spaghetti, yeah. Oh my god. I would want a theme of like every time he's sad or something, like you see spaghetti in the background.
Yes, that was like so relatable.
So I'm just going to throw out there, I put that in there because spaghetti is my comfort food. And I was like, this is how I'm going to relate to this guy, right? It's the best. I love it. And so, yeah, whenever I'm sad, my wife is like, do you need spaghetti? And I'm like, oh, I want spaghetti.
I was going to say, Lil Fast, you about it, like a director or producer or whatever. Did any of your characters, do you have an image of your head of like any actor or anybody specifically? Like, oh, that, you know, this person would be perfect.
So all of the stories that I write, my novels, my short stories, everything, they all come from dreams that I've had. So like I dream all of this stuff before I write it, which is actually why I don't really have a sequel yet. Because I haven't had a good dream to make into the sequel.
Let's get some Ambien in here, people. Let's get some Ambien.
Just melatonin. Yeah, like seriously, like all my books are based there. Some of them are very loosely based. Some of them are very close to the original dream. And so when I dream these, I don't have actors in my head. I have the characters that I create. So like I can see them very clearly in my mind, and I know what they look like. And so that would actually be like one of the problems with having me on set or involved. Is they'd be going to cast, and I'd be like, it's just no.
This is the hot new person. You're like, no.
That's not Samantha.
For Sydney Sweeney in anything. Let's just
that is true.
About that. We all make room for Sydney Sweeney.
Princess.
Sydney Sweeney can have any of the roles. I'm just going to put that out there. I would cast Sydney Sweeney in anything.
Princess.
That one would work. Princess. Yeah. I don't think of actors. I will say that as I was working on it, the voice of Dr. Dendrite, not necessarily the look, but the voice became very much, and I don't know if you're going to laugh at this or if you're going to agree, but like a very serious Phil LaMarr.
Phil LaMarr can do so much stuff.
Phil LaMarr, he's amazing, right? And I've watched so many shows where he is one of the voices, and he's got such an incredible range, and he can do so much. And in all honesty, like, Dendrite was, I guess the best way I can describe it is that, like, I imagined what Phil LaMarr might sound like when he's in his 70s. And so, like, I tried to capture a little bit of, like, he has a patter. He has a way of speaking that I think is really interesting. And so I tried to sort of capture some of that in the writing. And then it became its own thing after that.
Oh, no, you'll get no argument from us for Phil LaMarr.
Okay. Who would you cast? Did you have certain people you saw it for, like, certain characters?
I mean, I don't know if I had any specific actors in mind, but like I know
Denzel. I'm sorry.
You know what? As I was thinking right now, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah. Well, again, you know, an older guy in that age range, I'm like, who are you going to pick in Hollywood? It's either Denzel or Sam Jackson, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying it was definitely giving me a little bit of Will from Hancock when I was like visualizing it, because like it started off as Denzel because all actors of a certain kind of start off as
they're just he's your default.
It's the default.
That's a good default to have. Denzel default.
He's got talk about range, right? So like
yeah,
kind of slowly evolved into the Will Smith from Hancock, and as the story goes on, right? And then it's like,
So like, oh yeah, so that's a good question. Would you cast one actor to play the old version and one actor to play the young version, or would you find an actor that you think could do both? Right?
Yeah, you definitely probably need an actor to do both, because there's been movies where they do the time jump and the jump from the actress totally, I wouldn't say like ruin the movie, but definitely distracts you, because they don't like especially like back in the day, like they just didn't care. They're like, well, person's hot and this person's hot. We don't care if they don't look alike. But it's gotten better. But yeah, I think nowadays they would probably try to go, you know, to calm down the budget. A person that could pull off both.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I like your idea, Will Smith. I think he could do it. That'd be awesome.
And would you pull a Stan Lee? Would you have to show up somewhere at least for 2 seconds? Like, would you be one of those cops outside the diner?
Honestly, that's a good question. I think I definitely want to pop up into it. I'd either want like a funny line, or maybe I would want to be like that asshole sheriff that gets slaughtered, right?
Oh,
something
nice.
like that.
That's nice.
I would happily let Dr. Dendrite kill me. Please do. That would be fantastic. That'd be a beautiful moment for me.
It was just such an interesting, right from the beginning. It's not like you just like kind of take us on the ride and you slowly, the guy turning evil. Like, no, it's not that story. I'm just gonna let you know up front, I'm evil. This is what drove me evil, and you can. And I was like, it's one of those. I think Killmonger was right, guys.
Really. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm writing, is to really like. I love the idea of morally gray. And I think a lot of people think that morally gray is a lot of times like a villain who finds a justification, right? Or a hero who pushes the boundaries. And I don't think that's true. I think it can be. I don't like to speak in, broads, but like, I think morally gray is someone who knows that what they are doing is wrong, has a justification for it, but at the same time can see, I have this thing that I'm using to do what I want, but I'm still going to do it. I know that I have to make this choice, right? And so like that moment where Dendrite says, you know, like, I know that I have killed people. I know I have done bad things. And you like being morally gray is not about like being forced into situations, but making choices to step into that gray area and see if you can find a way to sort of be like, the ends don't justify the means don't justify the ends. This is the choice I'm making.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean, that's
the problem with superhero. I like as I get older, like it's just still so very much stark black and white, and they like there's not enough characters that fill the gray void. Although when you read it as an adult, you're like, I don't think that's a good character. That's right.
Well, I mean, is that the thing? I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, this person's evil" because they were born evil anymore. I mean, like when we were kids, they were just like, "Oh, this character's just evil." Now you know, it's like, did they have a bad childhood?
Red Skull.
Well, yeah. Nazi's gonna Nazi, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of people now it's like, oh, they had a bad childhood or they were screwed over, like Dendrite was screwed over, and it's
So, well, I think there's space for both, right? Like. Yeah. I think there are, there are the characters you have who are evil or good, and then they have, the ambiguous backstory, and they're fun to write. But yeah, no, straight up, there are just villains. Like there are people who are just born bad and they stay bad. There are people who, are inherently good people and they're going to be inherently good people. But I think what makes them fun to write is when you put them into a space. So if you have people who are good and bad, put them into a world that is morally gray. And so then they are on the outsides of it and the world doesn't really understand them. If you have characters who are morally gray, keep them morally gray, put them in a world that seems black and white. And that's where you get the fun. But, I definitely have characters in my books. The villain in Pulling Strings is just straight up evil. Just straight up evil.
Let a villain be a villain. Let him chew that scenery.
The villain in Pulling Strings is like, there's no doubt this person was born to be evil and will continue to be evil. But I do drop in that they are evil, and I don't want to give away too much for people who might read it. They are evil because of essentially who they are, and who they are is flawed because of the power that they have.
Yeah. I have that theory that certain like superhero powers are just gonna be for villains. Like a hero's never gonna have that power.
Yeah, I have the ability to make people explode. This is a hard one to use for good, right?
Or even just the seductive ones, like mind control.
Yeah. And so that's Pulling Strings. That's what it's all about. It's about mind control. And so I took that concept and I was like, mind control really is manipulation. And how can we sort of take it from, it's mind to control to like, this is messed up. Like this is a type of abuse. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's my darkest book. It gets pretty heavy.
Well, yeah, I mean,
after we read that, we'll have you back.
Yes. Yes.
I'll have a different background for that one.
Nice. I mean, mind control is the most seductive thing because it's like, if you can just,
I don't know, that's my, like, everybody's like, oh, I want to be able to read people's mind. Not me. I don't want to know people thinking me because I don't care. This is gonna make me mad. That would really drive me insane, honestly.
Yeah, I know. To hear what everyone's thinking about you.
True Blood. Like when I was like, that's exactly how it would go. Sookie from that show in the books. I don't want that power. That made me really realize I don't want that power.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely like being able to hear that. But like mind control, like you're talking about, Phil. Jessica Jones.
Yes. Yeah. Kilgrave, yeah.
Oh, he's terrifying. And what makes him terrifying in that version of it anyway, the TV version, is that the people that he controls know that they're being controlled. They don't understand what's happening. And it's like, it's that idea of like, I can't control my own brain. And so I looked at that show and I was like, whoever was writing this is someone who's like, they've had to deal with intrusive thoughts their whole life. Because that's what he is, right? He's the embodiment of intrusive thoughts.
That's a great way to put it, actually, yeah.
Oh my God, that's what's so scary. The idea that like, it's not even someone else who's controlling you. It's your own brain that's controlling.
Mm-hmm.
and you can't control it.
But it's just the, you know, the power to, you know, I know if I say something, someone has to do whatever I ask them to. I mean, how can that not corrupt you? Just
right. Like, how do you try and only use that for good? Like, how, you know, which I'm sure that'd be a fun story to write, but at the same time, the fun of that story then becomes the test of that person's willpower.
mm-hmm.
You know,
just no one can say no to you.
That's hard. That's hard, especially like if you were a kid and you're not getting what you want, you know? Like, have you ever seen a 3-year-old throwing an absolute tantrum? Imagine if they could just say what they wanted. Like, there'd be no stopping them.
Yeah, I mean, or even
how do you grow as a person from that?
Yeah.
Or even an adult. If you're not that good of a person, I mean, yeah, that's gonna go wrong in 2 seconds.
Absolute power corrupts.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, which is what I love about Dendrite, is that, like, in some ways he has absolute power, right? You know, like, by the time he's reached his zenith, he has absolute control over so many things, but he's still, I think that he still isn't corrupted by it, you know? Like, he doesn't use that power in a way to wreak havoc and take vengeance. If anything, he uses that power to try and control things in a way that doesn't disturb.
Well, I love the first line of the book because not only does it hook you, it kind of tells you the journey you're going to take, where it's like, you know, I never meant to become a supervillain. It's like, boom. It's like, oh, okay. This is the story you're telling. All right.
I take it back.
Yeah.
Dr. Doom. I take it back.
Yeah, I think some people definitely stepped out they were like, I'm going to be a supervillain.
Oh, yeah.
I love they just talk smack about the other villains and their lack of self-control. I love it. It's like he's just giving us tea. I love it.
Oh, that was one of my favorite parts. I was just like, what are all the things that other villains do, like, that you read in the comics, that someone who, like, I kind of imagined him almost as, like, he's like a fourth wall breaker, in that, like, it's almost like he's watching, you know, a TV show, or he's reading comics from the outside. He's like, well, that's just dumb. Why would you do that? That's ridiculous. That was a terrible choice. That doesn't make any sense at all. You know? And, like, yeah, of course he's going to talk smack. He's the smartest man on the planet.
But yeah, I mean, this world could be fleshed out so much, because when he's telling her about, what was his buddy, the historian or whatever, who just stole, like, historical artifacts. Hysterian. Yeah. He's like, yeah, it wasn't that great, but he was a nice guy. Yeah.
I love that idea. I love the idea of that, like, and you've seen it, you know, it comes up especially like in the Flash comics a lot and stuff like that, where there's the hangout where all the villains go and they sit and they talk and they chat, and, you know, and so, like, I know that I wanted that, and I really wanted there to be, like, a level of humanity to all of the villains and all of the bad guys, and then for all the heroes, you know, the old school heroes anyway, a level of humanity that's on the other side, where you get to see a bit of their ugly side. You know, you get to see what, you know, they have the public persona and then what's underneath. And what I loved was the idea that, like, the public persona of the villains is Dendrite with his lightning glove, you know, like, on the blimp over the city, you know, being gauche. And then, like, his private world is this very sort of, like, thoughtful, deep, tender, you know, like, I have this goal, I have these people who mean something to me. And then we've got the heroes, and, like, their public persona is of course, you know, a hero, wonderful, great. But the minute they let that drop, they say things where you're just like, oh, I see what kind of person you are. Okay. I know what you think like when you go home. I know who you vote for. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I love that, where it's like, you know, they kept bringing up Japan, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh, the Triad hid for years. They're out there plotting, scheming, and then it was like, no, Dendrite went home. He's like, oh God, what did we do?
Yeah. You know, like, how do you react in the face of something like that? You know, and you've got the heroes who push the blame, and then you've got the villains who go home and say, we have to change our ways.
But I mean, I know Lilith was talking about, you know, all this stuff, if this was adapted to a show or something. As I was reading this, because again, I'm a hardcore comic book fan, I would get to the end of a chapter, I'd be like, okay, that'd be the end of the second issue. And this would start the third issue. So, I mean, would you ever adapt this as a comic?
You know, I've thought about that, and my only thought of it, though, is that, like, some things work well in some mediums and not in others, right? Some things translate beautifully from one medium to another. I think translating the written word to a moving visual, like a movie or a show, I think can work really well. But translating the written word to a still visual, a comic book, can be really complicated because there's so much going on the written page. How do you translate that to visuals with as few words as possible? Now, I just don't have that.
Artists.
Yeah,
right.
You have to sync up, and that's the trick, because I have seen some adaptations. It's like they caught the kind of the essence, but not the wow factor of it.
Yeah, but the first chapter of Villains Never Die is it's narration, and how do you translate narration like that into a visual story without just covering the page in text? Which isn't what I'd want. I'd want it to be a visual story. So yeah, if some artist, read this book and came to me and was like, I have a way to do this, I'm down. Let's do it. Rock on. Let's have some fun. Again, I'm going to be a picky bastard and I'm going to have a lot of asks, but I don't have the capacity to think of it that way, but I know it could work in the right hands.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the secret, because we've talked to a bunch of comic book writers, and it seems like the ones that put out really good stories, they're like, oh yeah, I sent this script or whatever to the artist, and what I got back was way better than what was in my head. So
yeah, right, totally. You got to find someone who, man, you read comics and you read breakdowns of comics, which you guys do, and so this, examining the shapes of the panels on the first page as opposed to the last page, and seeing how they mirror each other, and the level of complexity to that visual storytelling.
Kinetic flow of the panels.
Oh my!
Absolutely.
I can't. I'm in awe of people who can do that, because I'm just make it tell the story. But there's so much more. You can tell so much subtext with those visuals that I can't even comprehend. I can do it with my words, but I can't do it with a picture, a still picture.
Yeah, I can barely draw a straight line with a ruler or a stick. When I see art,
same.
I think that's why I love comic books so much, and just art in general. It's just wow, somebody actually did that. I just couldn't fathom it.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. There's some beautiful, beautiful comics out there, and just and the storytelling of them can be so good, and someone who really understands how to just. The whole comic book is sort of just it's almost like a mural up on a wall, right? And it flows and it moves and it sort of becomes one thing to the next. And you've got to carry over imagery and color and lighting and shades. And you're using all this stuff in the back. I don't think like that. What color is Dendrite Studio? It says something about him. I don't know.
Well,
you tell me.
Classically, you'll go with purple.
Yeah, he loves purple. He does love purple.
Maybe not a full-on
That's a villain color, purple and green.
It is, yeah.
Maybe not a full-on comic book, but maybe for your con conventions, maybe get with an artist and just have them someone do up some posters of the characters from your books, and just kind of a.
Yeah, I've thought about that.
Yeah, because
I think that'd be fun.
Who should get him in touch with? Sakesha.
Oh yeah.
What do they do?
She does a lot of really, really great art. Maybe send him the link and see if that's his style.
Okay.
I love Sakesha. She's great. She's got a lot of great energy.
You know what I would want, in all honesty, is and I'm not saying this because I'm cheap. I don't want to pay someone to create my characters, if only because then it becomes my ask about.
You just want them to be inspired.
Yeah, I don't want to tell them how I picture the character. I want to give them the book and say, read the book, and whatever character, however you imagine them, I want you to create them. You say her style's cool. I think every style is cool, right? Styles are cool no matter what. I want to see how people visualize my characters. I don't, unless we're making the show, unless we're making the movie, I don't want to tell you, especially because this is you. This is your vision. This is your creation of it. Draw me Dendrite, draw me Wraith. I want to see them. I want to see how they appear in your head. Because I'm betting it's going to be totally different from how I see them, and probably cooler.
I mean,
you've lived with them so much longer, and yours is kind of set in stone, and then you see a fresh interpretation,
Or maybe just give someone a general reference, just the vaguest of notes. Be okay, here's Dendrite. He's this villain.
No capes.
No capes. Yeah, no, definitely no capes. That was the working title for a while, was Heroes Don't Wear Capes.
Oh.
That was so I went through many titles. Actually, so it started as Heroes Don't Wear Spandex Anymore. And then it became Heroes Don't Wear Capes. And then I went through a few others. Old Villain, New Hero, and A Wayward Girl was one, which ended up becoming the chapter titles.
Yeah, that's the chapter. Cool.
Yeah.
I love when something you think of can actually still be worked into it.
Yeah. And I think I do make a joke about spandex in there at some point. But yeah, like it went through a lot of different working titles. But yeah, I don't know. My notes are the book. You know, I don't wanna tell someone they have to be this or they have to be that. Draw them however you see them.
So,
that's the great thing about prose too. It's like you don't have the definitive. So like whatever your headcanon for that character is, until like another canon source comes out, that you get to have that. It's a very personal thing. That's the one thing I do love about books, especially like big like IP books before they get the movies and stuff, or before they get popular. Like that's your personal specific headcanon, and then you're just like, oh, that's not how I imagined it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which can be fun and it can be rough, and like I love when people, they make a movie out of something and people are like, well, that is not at all how I pictured that character. And other people are like, they nailed it perfectly. And it's like, okay.
As a Harry Potter fan, that's not where the tree goes.
Some details are debatable. Some are objective and some are subjective. I love it when people get all worked up about the subjective ones because it just says to me like, okay, this is someone who's passionate. This is someone who's like really into this.
All right, so if you didn't do a sequel to this book, do you think would you do another book on all new heroes and villains?
So I maybe if I had another good superhero story, right? Like I gotta have a story. I love the idea. I know there are writers out there, and this boggles my mind that they're like, oh, I have this cool world. I'm gonna write a book about it. And you're like, what's the story? And they're like, the what? And you're like, how? How do you do that? How do you just dive in and write a book when you don't have a story? I have to have a story. And most of the time when I sit down to write a book, I can see the majority of the book in my head like I'm watching a movie. Mm-hmm. Things change as I'm working on it. Things, alter and change, and you go through different editions and, things like that. But like, I have to have that story. And right now, in all honesty, I've started a sequel to Villains and I've stopped it multiple times because I have an ending, I have the world, I have concepts and ideas, but I don't have the story yet. And I have characters and I have their emotional states. I know, I know where Candace is emotionally when the next story picks up. I know where Agent Garcia is. I know where they're at, and I know where this story ends because I've had little inklings of it in the back of my brain. But like the middle of the story, how they get there, how those threads come together to be woven into a single thing, like that's still kind of like bubbling up somewhere in here. It's not there yet.
Yeah, I'm always interested in like the creative process because I'm not a writer, so it's like. So, like with Villains, like you came up with the concept first, then you're like, okay, now I need to flesh out characters to fit into this concept. Then,
well, so Villains was like, again, it was a dream. I had this wild dream that was, it had the three main characters. Now, in the first version, though, they were all very different people. They were terribly different. And like. I had this wild dream, and I ended up like a friend of mine came over, and he was sitting on my couch, and I was like, "Can I tell you about this dream that I had?" And which is like the worst thing that anyone can ever say to you, because like anytime anyone says that, you're always like, "Oh God, what are they going to talk about?" But I told him this whole thing, and he just looked at me. He was like, "That's a book, so just go ahead and write the book because you've got a book."
Wendy's.
Yeah. Sir, this is a Wendy's. And then Arachnus climbs the wall, sir. We need you to get off the counter. It's a wonderful interpretive dance, but we need you down. So it started out, like I had the basic story and I started fleshing it out and I started building it up. And I was really into using, their individual voices. And then the original book was way more focused on Dendrite, but it had far less of his. It had some of his backstory, but not nearly as much. And Candace was a very small character, and Garcia was sort of a medium-sized character. And I wrote the first version, and I thought it was great. This book took me almost 10 years to write to the published version. And then I went through, I shelved it, and I came back to it, and I shelved it, and I came back to it. And every time I came back, I had to sort of I had to grow as a person before I could write the next part. I had to come to realizations about things and really allow myself to do things and say that it was okay to do things as a writer. So straight up, the first version, Dendrite was not black. He was white. He was like an old white dude. And Candace was also not a person of color. And as I wrote and rewrote these versions, I think probably about version number 3, I realized in the back of my head, I knew from the beginning, but I realized I was this story of Dendrite and this thing of his life's work being stolen, his suffrage, his all of this stuff. I was I am writing the story of a Black American, and I have to acknowledge that. I have to. It's BS that I'm not. And so I wasn't there though as a writer, especially as a white writer. I wasn't cool with that yet. And so I made all of the characters completely neutral. I didn't describe anything about how they looked outside of they were tall or they were short or they were muscular or they were thin. I only gave these vague descriptions. And I was and people will know because of their story and it'll be obvious and da-da-da. And then I finished that version and I shelved it. And then I discovered the whole white default thing in writing. And that came to me. And, being a white writer, I hadn't thought about that. And then I read that and I went, oh, shit. Okay. And I had to do a lot of sitting at my laptop being oh, this is okay.
It was I'm glad you addressed the elephant in the room.
Yeah. I didn't want to mess it up. I was so scared of doing it wrong. Right. And I was so scared of doing it and being told, man, you don't get it. And this isn't cool. What you did, I didn't want to appropriate. I didn't want to tell a story that I didn't feel was mine to tell. Right. And so I did a lot of waffling and a lot of back and forth. And then I remember I sat down, this is probably edition number 7 or something. And I started writing the first chapter again from the beginning. And I hit that line of, the first Black kid to win this award in his neighborhood. And I stopped before that word. And I was took a deep breath and I typed it out. And then the whole story it just went. And it was wow. And and I knew Candace needed to change. And I knew all these characters needed to change. And I knew I needed to drop in all the stuff about microaggressions and all of those things. And once I did, what was amazing was that the story that I've been working on for years finally got to be told the way it really was meant to be told from the beginning. And it just sort of came out of me, and I did, I got several sensitivity readers for the individual sections. And I made sure to reach out to people, and I hired professionals, and I was I hired professionals, but I also reached out to friends, and I was can you read this and tell me, is this not cool? And when I got you're all good on all these, I was okay, I'm going to go ahead.
So
wow, it's good to hear you actually thought about it and then actually had people read it over, because some people don't do that.
Yeah,
it's very impressive, especially not a self-published independent author, because wow.
Well, I wanted it to be right, and I wanted it to be representative, and I wanted it to be something that people looked at and said, okay, this feels good. This feels right. This feels like it was written by someone who has an ounce of common sense.
I mean, I think that's a sign of good writing too, where it's you can tell you put the blood, sweat, and tears in it. Also, you're just worried about, does this work? Is this going to work for everybody? Can everyone see what I have in my head? And it does.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, like there, and I had to address a lot of inherent biases. I had to like look at a lot of things and be like, am I writing this because it's a stereotype? Am I writing it because there's some truth behind it? Am I writing it because I've heard it? Where have I heard it from? Who have I heard it from? Where's this coming from? And I really had to like, you know, do a little diving on that. And I know I'm still messed some things up. I'm 100% sure I did. You know,
It's
I try
hard
and improve with each
living
one.
in America, like all the things, especially like if you like consume a lot of pop culture and stuff like that, it's hard to like
Yeah.
really figure out what's what. So,
Yeah.
good on you.
Oh, thank you. I try. What jokes can I make? What jokes can't I make?
I
That's
mean-
the bigger question.
I mean, I'll tell you something funny. All right. I love like reading the book, you know, the whole, you know, however long in the beginning of the book, you know, all the characters are basically like Arachnus is this horrible creature. And then you get to the, you know, the diner and you know, there's dead bodies and everything. And then I almost giggled. I mean, then they get to the cave and they meet Arachnus for the first time. And, you know, just the whole scene. Is there fries with that?
I thought I was very proud of that line. Very proud when I wrote that line.
There's another burger too. Take it. No, we ate.
Yeah,
No, we're good.
yeah, we're good.
The triad of evil formed over a Happy Meal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like what brings people together better than food, right? You
Oh
know?
yeah.
You never saw Turbo
Yes,
inviting
Bill.
people out to dinner.
Phil and I are always trying to come up with a way to like review food now on like our other show, Salty Bed. Like, well, in the summertime, like let's just be lazy with the content. Let's just review some food.
I would listen to that.
It gets
I'd
close to
100%. Yeah.
We did Kit Kats, like Japanese
Oh.
Kit Kats, and then we just did
Yeah, they have like different
those
flavors in
banana
Japan.
split Kit
Oh
Kats.
yeah. The
Sunday from
McDonald's has
McDonald's.
a limited
We're
time.
gonna do I think we're gonna do the Arby's burger next, probably.
Ooh,
so.
Arby's is
Take
always
that
good.
one.
Yes.
That's gonna hit that one up. Have you ever been to Japan?
No, well,
I
yes,
haven't.
but I was very young.
Okay. I went there just a 10-day visit. I'm not a Japan expert. Not even going to pretend, right? But I went there a few years ago before COVID, and we did like a 10-day thing. But we found out when we were there that every airport in every city, and most cities, have like their own local flavor of Kit Kats that you can usually only get at the airports or like at a major distributor
That's
there.
better than a passport stamp.
Yeah. So every major city we hit, we were like, what is local cat? You know, and like we went and found them and like we brought a bunch home and like it was so much fun. It was awesome. The one from Narita Airport, I can't even remember what flavor it was now. It was this like pale orange and it was like I bit into it and I was like, candy is not supposed to taste like this. Candy's not supposed to taste like this. Like, this feels like someone, like, should have drizzled something over this on a plate with one little herb next to it. Like, oh my God!
Yeah,
They
they.
have some really awesome flavors.
Yeah, we got like was it 10 flavors? There was a pack. You could buy them on Amazon, but yeah. The best we agreed was the cookies and cream. It was basically like an Oreo Kit Kat. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
making me hungry, man. Making me hungry.
So sorry. Well, we'll let you get back to your breakfast then.
No.
To have you. Like, this
Yeah,
was
my
so
pleasure.
good.
Thank
And
you.
One of my staple blogs, now that I remember it, when I was like doing the research, Black Nerd Problems, they gave you a really great glowing review. And so if you are a person of color and you want to just see the reviews first, I suggest read that one and then the Goodreads reviews, and then go buy the book hardcover,
Oh.
preferably.
It's funny you bring that up. I legit cried when I read that review from Black Nerd Problems.
I love
Like,
it. I've been there since the beginning. So when I was doing the research, I was like, oh, they reviewed this. And I was like, that's a good.
That was we were watching the movie. We were like watching a movie as a family, and I got like a notification that had come out. Like they didn't even tell me. I just like it popped up on my Instagram or whatever, and I was like, oh okay. And I went upstairs to like grab some popcorn, and then my kid comes upstairs, and they're like, Dad, where's the popcorn? Why are you crying? We're watching a comedy, you know. And that was a beautiful review. The way he wrote was just gorgeous, brilliant.
So yeah, kids.
Justified.
Yes, get the books. I
Thank
mean,
Thank you.
We can vouch for Villains Never Die. Right there. It's right there.
Well, if you're at a con and you see them, even better. No
Exactly.
taxes.
I'm gonna be. Let's see. I'm gonna be at the Fairfax Comic Con, August 17th and 18th, I'm going to be at the 4-State Con in Harrisburg, so back in Pennsylvania. That's 24th and 25th of August. Then I'm off the con circuit when school starts, and I applied to be at the Mannheim in November. Haven't gotten my confirmation on that. And I'm usually at AwesomeCon and GalaxyCon Richmond.
Very cool. So you're based out of the DC area?
Yeah, I've been here, my whole life.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool.
And remember, kids, support Nick not only by buying the book, but reviewing the book late after you're done with it.
Reviews matter.
Yes.
Reviews are super important, even if you only think it's a 3-star. Any review is helpful, not the 1 stars. But anything that's 3-star, 4-star, or but 5 is preferable. But I'll take.
But yes, me and Lil give the book a big thumbs up. Kids, take a dive into the Wolfiverse.
The Wolfiverse. I love it.
Oh my god! Stolen.
You got
Now
3. I take it and run with it. I mean,
the Wolfiverse.
Just always remember a dedication to Capes and Lunatics.
Yes!
Capes and Lunatics, always.
But I'm like, he has all these different books for genres. I'm like, it's
Yeah,
just
I really feel like we should. I want to read
multiverse.
Pulling Strings, Phil. So we're
Oh, yeah.
We'll call you next.
Yes.
Cool. Yay!
Oh yeah, trust me, we'll bug you again. Yes.
Please do. This was awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And is there anything else? Website, social media you want to plug?
So I have an Instagram page. It is you just look me up, Nick DeWolf. I am not super active on it. I have found that social media takes away from my writing time. So you'll find out if I have a new book coming out or if I have anything that's sort of in the works, I'll start presenting it there. I'll jump back on and I'll probably talk about the cons starting in July. But no, I'm very, I just sort of keep to myself. I'm a little goblin sitting in my room trying to write my stories. Instagram is usually the best way. And if you hit me up there, I will respond back within 6 months.
And Nick, I mean, if you have a new book coming out, let me know. Even before we get our hands on it, I'll post it on our social media. Be like, oh, hey, friend of the show, Nick DeWolf has a new book out. Go get it.
Thank you. I'm working on one now in the first draft mode. But again, totally different sci-fi dystopian military story.
That's right up my alley. As a Star Trek fan, Deep Space Nine is my favorite franchise out of that one.
Okay.
Sounds right up my alley.
This is more like Earth is falling apart. It's basically there you go. 2 soldiers being pursued relentlessly across the wasteland by a learning robot.
Oh,
the worst.
Oh, the evil AI.
Evil AI.
Of course, the creative's going to go with the evil AI. Yes,
I know, right?
Wally tried to warn us, guys.
I know. It's just going to be spitting terrible poetry at them over and over and over again.
Thank you so much. It was such a great conversation.
Yes.
We hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you for having me. I love it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.